And so here we are again. I haven't been around if you've noticed. You don't know who I am. I'm Suzanne Titkamai. I wrote for Pathos for almost 10 years. I've been covering the Quiverfull and the fundamentalist religions mostly. But I'm here on YouTube and I'm kind of just doing my own thing and doing different things. Today is going to be one of those ones. Do the YouTubey things if you're here, please. Hit like, subscribe. I appreciate that. Don't harass or bully anybody I'm talking about. Don't even act rude to each other in comments. Hey, Aaron, because it's just silly. And thank you for watching. I just wanted to come on this morning. As you can see, I look like the SHIT, so you can guess. I am sitting here waiting. I got 2 more hours before I can take stupid pain meds again. One of the things about having a chronic ailment is that you never know how it's going to pop up. You think about it, you think, well, I'm okay. Those of you that know me have known I really struggled myself since January with one thing or another, one type of infection or another, I guess it is. Now I have diverticulitis, and I haven't had that in 7 years. So here we are. I don't even like the way pain pills make me feel. And looking for a car. We're getting ready to go out this afternoon and car shop locally, and I am not looking forward to it. We've already test driven a car, and I think gone haywire here. I just have to talk about how haywire they've gone. Hey, Bliss. Hey, how you doing? The last time I ranted about the car situation over stupid things can really screw with things. They're real expensive here, Bliss. Real expensive. Cars are 2 to 3 times higher here because they don't make cars in any way, shape, or form. They're imported from everywhere. And you'll see some cars here that you don't see other places. There was a SUV that we drove recently it's one of those things where it's a Nissan, but it's not a model that's ever carried in the US. So we're running with that too. So I'm going to blame all of my various problems and needing pain, not getting pain relief, Carolyn, what's the deal with the pain relief? And it has to do, I think, with chronic illness. If you're a spoonie. Yesterday afternoon, I took the pain pills. Great. I accidentally slept through and I was supposed to take them again. Didn't take them. Slept through it, woke up in horrible pain. Got up, took the pain pills, got not much relief and not much sleep. This morning, taking the pain pills, here I am 4 hours later, no relief, very little relief at all. So I don't quite know what I'm going to do here as far as that goes. I will say this, diverticulitis is crazy painful. 2017 Ford Escape, and I love it. Sounds good, Bliss. We have to have an SUV here because we live on a dirt road. Sometimes we have to ford rivers and stupid stuff like that. So it's got to be an SUV. It's got to be 4-wheel drive. What we ran into with this, and I was talking about this when I was talking from R&L, I've had back surgery and chronic pain spine issues. Kratom? Oh, yeah, I've heard good things about that. I don't usually have pain issues, but occasionally I'll run up across something where I'm having terrible pain issues, and this is a terrible pain issue thing. We were in Arnold. Our car died. The transmission died. And I ran up against evangelical hubris, I call it. And so my husband has this friend here who I was calling John, but I'm just going to be honest and call him by his real name, David, who was insisting that we bring the car back, that we get the parts from the States, and he would rebuild the solenoids and it would work well. I mean, he was really nasty about it on the phone to Jim. He was just really pushing him. Then Jim kept saying, I don't know what to do. I kept saying, do what you think is right, regardless of David or anybody else. Do what you think. And I was having the Lost in Space robot going off in my mind, waving those dryer arms going, warning, warning, Dr. Smith. Yeah, I'm a child of the 60s, so I'm talking about the original Lost in Space with the silly robot that had the dryer vent arms. Okay, so we came back. We started making arrangements to have the car towed back here. I had already ordered the solenoids. I was going to pick them up during my daughter's wedding. So my husband calls Dave and said, okay, Dave, we're all set for you and whoever to do the repair. And you said that you wanted to buy it for $3,000. Okay. I already pointed out to Jim that Dave doesn't have $3,000. Dave doesn't have a pot to piss in, a window to throw out of here. He's one of the group of people you see here that are living on almost no money, that are constantly caging for bucks. He has hit us up for stuff for months for money. And hey, Silver Goddess, so we got all the stuff going on with this crazy guy. And he tells Jim, I never agreed to buy your car. I never agreed to work on your car. You're crazy. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell? I heard what you said to him. I heard every word. So Dave said, I'm not going to discuss this with you anymore. And he hung up on my husband. Hung up on him after he'd been really nasty and pushing and really insisting this is what we're going to do. And so we're storing a buddy's car here, a guy named Bruce. We stored his car the last time and it was a disaster. This time we told him we weren't paying for any repairs, any inspections, any registration, nothing. It was just going to stay here. We would run it enough to keep the battery alive. So we got back and said, well, we have this car. We drove the car and it immediately died. We had to pay a mechanic to come out and do work on it. Bruce, we contacted him and said, hey, we had to put a new starter. It ran X amount of dollars. Bruce said, I don't want you driving my car. Yeah, and he's David, he came up to my husband yesterday in church and tried to smooth it over. My husband didn't say anything, just kind of let him say his piece. So he's concluded he needs better friends between Bruce and David, and I think he does. I think when you have friends that screw you over, like Bruce has done us repeatedly over the stupid car situation, it is out there. I should take pictures and post it on here. It is rolling scrap iron that is filthy, 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 filthy. So we're going to be getting another car ASAP. I don't like spending that kind of money, but what can you do? We're here. And we've driven several. We've driven one for sure. We're going to drive a bunch more this afternoon, and then we'll go from there. That's assuming my pain medication finally actually kicks in. So I want to talk a little bit about that because I'm getting a lot of questions. What is Quiverfull? Carolyn, we are no longer going to store his cars here, no matter what he says. We've been doing it because he's a friend. He's acted like nothing but a butthole since we started doing that for him. Unbelievable. And he fits kind of with the scheme of things here because a lot of Americans who are here tend to be a little on the rebellious side. They're not the kind of people that usually do well anywhere else. They're just used to doing things their way. These people that I'm talking about, both of them, Bruce and David, are both hardcore evangelical Christians, both of them. Both of them have used my husband, both of them. And I'm kind of sick of it with both of them. And they both screech that they are. David is actually a minister. He's not a minister here, but he is a minister. I've just kind of had it with both of them. I got into it with Dave about 2 months ago because he's written a religious book that he wants me to promote on his channel. And I said, well, get me a review copy. I'll look at it and then I will make a decision whether or not it's a good fit here. And he just flipped out. So I had to tell him off 2 months ago and say, many of my people that come on here have experienced the kind of evangelical abuse, the spiritual abuse that you would not believe. So if there's anything in the book that is not safe, I am not going to promote it. That's what I finally had to tell him to get him to back off because he was beginning to pester me quite a lot about it. Those aren't friends. And I never lend friends money. I considered it a couple months ago, decided against it. Bliss, I don't do that. I don't lend any of them money. And after this experience with Bruce, I'm going to hit him with a bill for the cost of storing his car here when he comes back. He probably won't pay it, but he'll get the message. I checked into what the legitimate storage places are charging, and I'm going to put the bill that way. And then it stops. Jim better find better friends because this is ridiculous. So, Quiverfull, now that I've ranted about the series of confloptions that is in my life right now, my health, which is never good. It's been crazy since the beginning of the year. And the whole stupid ass car thing, which we knew our car was on death's door anyway. I mean, that wasn't a surprise to us. And I'm getting a lot of questions about Quiverfull. I'm getting a lot of questions about the Duggars, and I'm getting some info. Well, here's the thing. I haven't been following a lot of what's going on with Josh Duggar and the trial beyond that the feds are asking for a maximum. The fact that they're asking the maximum makes me believe there's a lot of evidence that just was not openly exposed in court. They must have a ton of stuff, and it's stuff that the judge would see to ask for that kind of sentence. Now, I know everybody and their brother has been writing to the judge saying, please, no, don't sentence. Now, I know everybody and their brother has been writing to the judge saying, please, no, don't give Josh much of anything, couple of years, maybe a slap on the wrist, nothing. And I don't know how that's going to play out in the courtroom, because the one other trial that I know was a quasi-famous fundamentalist Quiverfull person. It didn't play out well at all. What happened was the entire church begged the federal judge not to sentence him, saying it was a girl that had seduced him and whatever. It was the Jack Shope trial I'm talking about now. Jack Shope was the pastor who was in charge of First Baptist Church in Hammond, Indiana, and Hiles-Anderson College. So his parishioners begged the judge to give him a minimal sentence or no sentence. He was accused of having taken a girl across state lines for purposes of, so abuse. And the girl that he had taken was underage. She was 16. She had been SA'd. He was treating her for SA while SAing her. So it didn't work out well for him. The judge ignored what the prosecution asked for. They actually said 10 years would be adequate, which was like a middle ground. And it was what that Jack Shope had agreed to plead guilty as long as they gave him 10 years. What they ended up doing was the judge looked at that and said, 10 years is really not adequate for what you've done. And they gave him 3 more. State lines is a federal charge. Yeah, they don't typically F around with these charges. So Bliss, the judge hit him with 3 more years than what the prosecution wanted. So he's been in there a long time now. I think that he probably is up for parole soon. Somebody was telling me. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because hundreds of his parishioners wrote the judge similar letters to what's being written to the judge now in the Josh Duggar case. And it didn't work out well for for Jack Shope. And I don't think it's going to work out well for Josh either. I think the judge is going to look at all those letters, look at what the prosecution says, and review the evidence and decide that the truth of the matter, I'm hoping this is what he decides, that Josh is a predator that needs to be off the streets for a while. Emily D. Baker said 8 to 13 years. I think that's pretty reasonable expectation. Whether he gets that or not, I don't know. But I do know a lot of times they go with those middle ranges. But what Josh did is supposedly so bad that I wouldn't be surprised if the judge gave him a little more than that. Who wants to have all those hundreds of letters, well, not hundreds, but letters from all his family saying what a great servant heart he has and how he's so humble and blah, 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 blah. I think the judge is going to be fooled by that one bit. I think that that's going to not play well. Could be wrong because it is Arkansas, but he's sentenced in 2 days. So I have to feel better about them so I can go on a rant about it. A lot of people are asking about Quiverfull because of the other day I talked about the Andersons had been swatted, that somebody had swatted the Andersons. The cops had shown up. I hope the judge writes a book to me. Me and my mother-in-law have been waiting and counting down for this day, all but done disappointed. Bliss, you are so right. So I'm waiting. If that's disappointing, I'm going to be upset. And so the other day I talked about Susanna and Stephen Anderson. If you don't know who they are, Anderson is I always call him the Pope. He's kind of the Pope. He's the guy that runs the new IFB, the New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church. He's their Pope, their mafia head, whatever you want to call him. And there have been all kinds of scandals with him and his church for many years now. Mostly things like him calling for the death of gay people, getting some of his parishioners to show up with firearms at an Obama rally when he had called for the death of Obama. He has just done and said so many horrible things. He's really hard to take seriously. Well, they got swatted a couple of weeks ago, I understand, by somebody who doesn't like them. And I was kind of outraged by that because while I can't stand Stephen Anderson and I have lesser dislike for his wife, I don't wish that on anybody. But like I said, people are asking me, Susanna claims they are not Quiverfull. The Duggars claim they are not Quiverfull. So I need to talk a little bit about what Quiverfull is. There are a lot of names for it. I've even heard it called replacement theology because you're not just replacing yourself. You are coming up with all these kids. One of the things that was talked about with Nancy Campbell of Above Rubies is that the whole purpose is to outbreed the brown people. That's literally what she said. And she is one of the old hands at Quiverfull. It has a lot of different names. Mostly, if you run across any theology where one of the absolutes is allowing God to open and close your womb, guess what? It is Quiverfull. No matter what they call themselves, like the Duggars, they say they reject the name Quiverfull. Well, guess what? They are using Quiverfull terminology, theology, and it is not open for discussion, really. If you are using the same theology and having all these kids like Susanna Anderson and the Duggars, they're Quiverfull. There's no doubt about that. They just reject the name because they think the name is poison. So that's one of the things I've always disliked about the Duggars. I just have to say this. The Duggars tend to want to define with different definitions everything they do. Their theology, they like to scrub it up for public consumption. They try to make it nice and pretty and all this other stuff so that it is palatable for the masses so they can continue to their own little grift with their television show. But the truth is what they're doing is just so egregious. No matter what they call it, no matter how they try to clean up the theology and make it seem wholesome and everything, just look at Josh. Josh is like the poster kid for how badly that the modesty culture thing has gone, and they preach that as well. So that's all part of it. Just look at their home organization, the one they've spent the most time preaching, which is the ATI-IBLP, which is now on the ropes. I think they're not going to do well. They're putting all their wisdom booklets online. They're no longer selling them. So their own little cult leader thingy is falling apart. I don't know what the Duggars and others will do who've been following that. I haven't kept up with any of this, so I'm going to do a little research this afternoon and see how each one of the cultural enforcers in this group does. Because I haven't even looked at Debbie Pearl in a while even. The Pearls make me laugh. They really are out there. That's when they're not beating children. Their theology, which is beat your child if you break his spirit, is one of the worst I've ever heard. But Debbie comes up with some zingers sometimes. And I've read her writings and laughed at how many times she's gone after her husband, Michael, preaching total submission and turning around and treating Michael like he is a recalcitrant child, short of beating him, but treating him like he's a child and complaining about him. Some of the stories that she's told on him, like one where he kept making his own oatmeal and he would not rinse the pan out. And you know what I know, when you make oatmeal and you don't rinse the pan, it turns into kind of concreto here. And you have to soak it a while to get it out and all of that. Well, he was doing that, and she figured out a way to teach him a lesson, which was to offer him sexy times if he did the dishes. And she got to watch him have a horrible time trying to clean that pot. And it taught him a lesson that he needed to clean the pot right away. I got to give her credit. She used sex in order to manipulate him in a religious group that thinks that manipulation is akin to witchcraft. So, Debbie, salute. So all of these people, no matter how they claim, they actually are quiverfull. They all have the same type of theology. And what was the other thing I wanted to talk about today? Homeschooling. Somebody posted some things from Homeschoolers Anonymous, who's a great organization. There are kids that have been raised in homeschooling. They weren't trying to make some claims, but the person sharing their words were trying to say that homeschooling always happened. And I forgot why they said homeschooling always happened. But it had to do with some really ridiculous idea this person had. And I just wanted to say, people that homeschool in this group, they do it for a couple of reasons. One of the biggest reasons they do it is so they can influence their child completely. They isolate their child so the child is not exposed to sex education, they're not exposed to birth control, they're not exposed to evil liberals, they're not exposed to abortion, homosexuality, any of that. So that's a big one right there. That's the one that most people use when they are homeschooling, but it's not the only one. Sometimes people, and this is the one that scares me, people have really been advocating for homeschooling lately. I'm not against it, I just don't have the patience. There's a reason I didn't become a teacher. Bliss, you're right on that. Same here. Because my son has said, why didn't you homeschool us? I said, you know how ADD and leaping around like a frog on a hot griddle I am? Do you think I can keep it? No. So there's a subset. And I think in Quiverfull, it's a larger subset than it is in a lot of homeschooling communities where they homeschool to keep the government out of their families, they say. They know that the stuff they do would lead to questions with CPS if their child was in public school or private school. Because everybody at the school, from the janitor on up, is considered a mandatory reporter. Anyone that works with the children is a mandatory reporter of abuse and neglect. So if they don't have them in public or private schools, there's no one that has their eyes on the child who's going to be able to say, hey, there's food insecurity in that house. They're not feeding the kids right. There's nobody to say, why do you have bruises all over your behind and your legs? Why do you have dark circles? Why are you losing weight? There's nobody to intervene for these kids when they take them out and homeschool them for that reason. And there are a fair amount of people that do that. I've heard rumors that is why the Rodriguezes, Jill and David, have been homeschooling and moving from place to place, because some states are actually putting laws in on homeschooling that say that if your child shows up bruised or whatever, and CPS gets called, or CPS gets called in any way, shape, or form, you lose your right to homeschool. And I am not opposed to homeschooling. I have lots of friends that have homeschooled who've done great at it. I have a friend that got her son graduated at 16 and he got a full scholarship to UVA. And I tell you, that is a difficult task, my friends. UVA is very funny about who they take, much less who they're giving scholarships to. But all my friends that have done awesome at it have one thing in common. They're all educated, all of them. They're the ones that are doing the good job. The people who barely managed to get homeschooled themselves or barely managed to graduate high school, I see the academic struggles a lot of them have when they're homeschooling their children. And I don't know what it's going to take to address that, but it's turning out children without adequate skills to support themselves as adults, without the skills they need for all the stuff going on, to take jobs, to hold that job, to pay bills, to go here and there and do the things they have to do. They've been raised like veal in a box. The public schools have been nothing short of wonderful to my son who had an IEP. Individual Educational Plan, I think is what that stands for, and those are wonderful because of his autism. What is Quiverfull views on diagnosis like autism? Satan. A lot of Quiverfull people think that things like autism are demonic. The ones that don't think that they're demonic have other weird ideas about where autism comes from. Some of them even say that if you vaccinate your children, they get autism. Even though scientific studies have proven again and again and again that none of that stuff causes autism, that it's not demonic. They don't know what it is yet, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. Quiverfull and a lot of religions like to blame everything on Satan and demons. And it's not Satan or demons, it's just life. These things happen. Two of my grandkids were homeschooled. One of the moms was a cop. My daughter didn't like the public school. Michelle, some people do a really good job of it. And I think that somebody who was a cop would probably be at least self-educated enough to do an awesome job of it. I think the latest God's Not Dead movie has something about homeschooling. I found that series kind of creepy. Java Man, that series was quite creepy. You're not the only one. Here's the thing with a lot of Christian movies, and I was just ranting about this the other day to a close friend. It's like, I would like to see, if they're going to make Christian movies, I would like to see them done as well as Hollywood does their movies. You may or may not like movies from the mainstream, but you got to admit, a lot of them, they make their point without belaboring it. A lot of Christian movies are so awkward and poorly written and just poorly done. And it's just like, dull, like Fireproof. I saw Fireproof and was laughing in the theater. When I worked for Pathos, I would sometimes get critics' reviews. I would be able to go into the theater when they were showing it to all the local critics to get reviews and see it. I remember one, somebody called it the magical African-American grandma movie. I'm not sure which one that was. But it was about an African-American grandmother that was talking to an African-American younger woman to pray for her husband and went in without a word. That movie was ridiculous. And the critic review that I was in DC, we were laughing. It was not good. Christian movies also use a lot of straw man arguments. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Homeschool group had their own 4-H. That's awesome. If you're going to homeschool, you really do need to provide some outside source material. I taught art for a while as a homeschool to the homeschool group, and I enjoyed it. I ran into some problems with the kids. It was a lot of problems with behavior that I would not have thought of. And there were kids that would definitely have been on an IEP and some kind of special education program and would have had CPS involved in their lives that were part of that homeschool thing. And I actually talked to the mothers about it and said, you really need to take little Johnny here and have him evaluated because he's not quite where he should be at 8 years old. And I was basically told to bugger off. I should have called CPS and all these people. I think that environmental pollutants are a factor in autism. They may also lower sperm counts. Java Man, I think that is probably the reality of why a lot of us are coming down with these weird diseases. I was talking to somebody earlier about this very thing. I mean, look at, especially in the United States, so many of us have come down with so many weird things. I found out later that I had had mast cell from birth, and that's what was driving my asthma all those years. And I grew up in the shadow of Exxon, conceived and born, raised in the shadow of Exxon, the various Exxon refineries in South Louisiana. And I don't doubt that that's why I'm sick. I believe that that is the reason. And I think that's the reason why a lot of us are quite ill, is because of the pollutants, environmental pollutants in the country that they don't have anywhere else. I was explaining to someone earlier today, there is an ingredient in bread in the United States, not in all bread, but in a lot of them. It's the same ingredient that's in those rubber yoga mats. I can't think of the name of the ingredient, but if you look up rubber yoga mat bread, it'll tell you the name of and I started having extreme, like a medium level, not extreme, medium level anaphylaxis over bread in the US. And later I found out it was not the bread, it was the additive that they were putting in the bread that was the same thing as yoga mats. I'm real allergic to that. And so I quit using Jackie, no, I think it was something like start with an AZ, Azo something or other. That's the thing that I have the problem with. It's just off. Maybe that's maybe that is why KJ is the way she is. I don't know what to think about her lately. She's been kind of yeah, it's banned everywhere else, but this is also banned everywhere else. So I wouldn't doubt there's more than one additive. Pollution has got us all messed up. I believe so. I can't eat chicken nuggets either, Java man. It's just no way. The plastics and a lot of fast foods too. Yes. Subway did have that in their bread and they no longer have it in there, but they also have all this processed meats. It's full of nitrates and all kinds of other things. I can't have processed meats. I can't have a lot of processed foods because of my mast cell. So I have to cook from scratch frequently. And then when I go out to eat, I make sure I go to places that I know they're cooking from scratch. They're not using a lot of processed anything. I think they're more nugget than chicken. Yeah. Sarah, I tell you, I love Subway, but I can't eat it very often. I have to be really having a good spell where I'm having nothing going on. And I think right now, the reason I have this diverticulitis flare up after 7 years of not, I think it's the stress of the whole thing with my husband in the car and his crazy friends, on top of having been sick off and on since January. Potassium bromate, that's another, yeah, it's another one. Maybe Josh and Jared can send us. Somebody told me that Jared is coming up for release. Jared did not. I'm going to Google, and I'll tell you the exact name of it. Rubber yoga mat bread. It's azodicarbon. No, mine. Azodicarbonide. AZODICARBONAMIDE. That's the one I'm talking about. That's the one that it causes asthma. It causes asthma problems. Danielle, I totally agree with you on that. I'll eat out. That's why people ask me, say, why are you going to the Burger Shack? Well, I go to the Burger Shack because he buys his meat the same place I buy my meat. It's all Nicaraguan beef that has no preservatives, additives. The cows were not fed any kind of antibiotics. The grass-fed meat is the sweetest. I can just tell you right now. So I know he's doing that. I know where he's buying his buns from. I know that he is getting the good stuff. I know where he gets his produce from. I know all these people. There are places that I buy my stuff from too. So if I get where I cannot cook, I just need to go out, I'll go there. I'll go to Seasons. I'll go to a couple other places that I really love. There's a place El Chiquero, I think it is Chiguero. I can't pronounce it. It is right on the beach in Tamarindo. It's all fresh, 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 fresh seafood, fruit, and vegetables. So I'm really careful about where I go to when I've got to go out to eat. Potassium bromate. I'm going to have to read up on potassium bromate because that's a new one on me. I was so focused on the azo, which I do know that I'm allergic to. Every time I have any kind of thing with the azo in it, the yoga mat stuff, I have an asthma attack every single time. And I'm going to have to write that down because I don't remember anything anymore, especially when I'm in a state like this where I haven't slept and the pain has been unbelievable since last night. Okay, got it. Unbelievable pain. So crazy, crazy. So it's crazy what they'll put in our food. I don't like having to cook from scratch. I've been up in the bed sick for days since we got back from the trip. So I got dishes to wash this morning. I've got clothes to wash, and I don't have a drop of water. They're repairing the water lines again. Jared's earliest possible release date. Oh, they're going to make him serve a lot longer than I thought then. Somebody was telling me the other day that they thought that Jared was going to be released in the next couple of years. I guess not. Maybe him and Josh could room together. Do you know if Jared's being held locally or is he being held in that special unit in Phoenix? That would be interesting to know. Jared had terabytes of that horrible foreign. I think you're much safer eating food in Costa Rica than here. They let the companies add anything to food in the U.S. Jackie, I know that. So I make sure that I get local stuff. And since COVID hit, you can't really get very many imports from the States anymore anyway. It's kind of hit and miss. I was carrying on the other day, and I'll show you this. I was annoyed by this because you can't get things from the States much or from Canada. I'm looking for this. This is a Canadian body butter that I use that I was buying at Costco here. I haven't seen it in months, just like I haven't seen other things. Ritz crackers have disappeared. So many things that my husband likes have disappeared because they can't get them because of the supply chain issues. Federal correct? Inglewood. I wonder why they don't have him at the unit in Phoenix. That is weird. So yeah, I've thought about that. So I've talked to my friends about that. I try to eat low down on the scale because anything can provoke the asthma. My husband can tell you I've been in restaurants where it's happened, even though I've questioned the person about the food and what they have. And then ended up sick as a dog, wheezing, going into anaphylaxis reaction. And this is going to sound weird, but if I have to travel, I can have those little cheeseburgers that McDonald's makes. The buns are almost entirely cornstarch. The patties are almost entirely, like 55% oatmeal. So I can eat those and not react. So that's my go-to if I get in a situation where I'm traveling and there's nothing safe. I will say this too. I have noticed this in the States and here. If you eat at 5-star restaurants and you tell them right up front, hey, I can't have XYZ, they'll go out of their way to make you something you can eat. Say, okay, I'm going to talk to the chef. Let me see what I can do. I've had that experience too. So know what you're eating, know where it came from, know all of that. So Josh, we can't get wood to build a fence until September. I live in Colorado. There's a lot of wood here. I thought the guy was joking. Nope. Danielle, I keep hearing that. I hear that all the time. And it's kind of weird, funny, because we have had so many Americans move here in the last 6 months. I mean, tremendous. So many that they've almost tripled the rents in Tamarindo. And every piece of property that had been on the list for like 3 years or so just disappeared. I had to laugh. Some of the places I looked at, including one, I kept telling my husband, like, this place is a bargain. Let's buy it and rent it out. I couldn't talk him into it. That place went for a lot of money. I called it the Italian Castle because it was up on the top of a mountain looking down on the Pacific. You see the Pacific from all the rooms of the house. It was 4,000 square feet, and it was just gorgeous. But it was remote. That's why my husband didn't want it. It was remote. They lowered the price on that thing to almost $100,000. So now that's not possible. Everybody's places have gone up tremendously. The canton of Santa Cruz, everybody notices, including us, they're reevaluating everybody's property. The property taxes are getting ready to go up to full value. So I'm hearing that here. There's no shortages with any of that. That was the other thing I want to say. We don't have shortages like in the States. We get things from Europe easily, things from China, Asia easily, things from South America easily. The only thing that is hard to get is anything from the US. So I don't know why the US is having such supply chain problems. Everybody's saying COVID, COVID, COVID. Well, you know, I don't know about there, but here people are acting like COVID is over. I'm usually the only person masked anymore when I go places because they've lifted the mandatory masking rules. And I'm not crazy about that. I'm not taking any chances. So far, I've gotten through this without contracting the bug, and I'm planning on trying. I have too many other health issues going on to even want to do that. So yeah, I just wanted to rant a little bit today. I hear my husband just pulled up outside, so I'm going to go. I can feel that my pain meds aren't doing a damn thing, so I'm going to have to go back to the doctor and say, look, you got to bump these things up. It's not COVID anymore. I think it's greed. Could be. Like I said here, housing prices have gone crazy. Crazy. I've had people begging to rent my cabina, and I've had to say, no. I don't rent that thing out for anybody. I keep it strictly for family and friends to come visit. The monkeypox, I'm actually kind of afraid over that. So masking is a thing. I don't know what's going to happen at all. So you guys have a really great day. Be blessed. Love you guys. And I'll see you in a day or two, I guess.